Let's move on to some climate change news. Here's a tweet from Peter Kalmus. Says, this is insane. Stopping climate and ecological breakdown on Earth is like 1 billion, or is that 1 trillion times easier than establishing a permanent, independently sustainable human presence on Mars. Why do I even need to say this? He's referring to a tweet. I guess somebody was talking about Elon Musk. Musk on why he's interested in creating a self-sustaining city on Mars. He said, right now, civilization is not looking super strong. Elon Musk, supposedly a very, very smart man. And also, advisor to courtier to kings and presidents and world powers. He's out there hobnobbing with the big boys. Elon Musk, right? And Elon Musk says right now civilization is not looking super strong. He also says expendable rockets are utterly stupid. Anyways, he's talking about Musk. But the quote that Peter Kalmus is referring to is this one. And the reason why civilization is not looking super strong. Well, I'll go on to read another one by Peter Kalmus. I say this even as a huge fan of planetary exploration. I was such a science fiction nerd that I became an astrophysicist. Even now, after switching to climate science, I work at JPL, the best place for planetary exploration in the world. Somebody says people are scared of collectivism. That would be called communism, but we can't have it because we need fascism or America. Making America great with fascism. That's what we need. Right. Because we want, this libertarian capitalist fantasy to continue. Neoliberal, libertarian, capitalist fantasy to continue. Capitalism is pretty cringe. Actually, capitalism is way more cringe. Keith Hayes, anti-socialist coup man for earthly lithium. Yes, that's Elon Musk. Guys, we have 119 watching, 51 likes. Please like up the video. Please make sure that you're still subscribed or are subscribed. Muzza, how you doing? On the Fence with Muzza has entered the chat. Good to see you. Anthony Davis, things look like nearly normal at the Kroger. Everyone was shopping until they were dropping today. The store was packed with everything under the sun. Yeah, there's a lot of normalcy going on, even though supposedly we're about to enter into, some kind of election chaos leading to martial law or a re-spike of coronavirus or who knows. Trump denying the results of the election and just staging a military coup. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? Osama differs, says our Kroger, we have 3 and the stock is horrible. Anyways, let's move on. I was trying to show you this from going south. Arctic sea ice extent declining in mid-October. Here it is. Maybe declining or maybe plateauing, maybe staying the same. I'm not sure. Whatever it isn't good. You know what I mean? And I wanted to find this from Zach Labe. Let's see. This from Zach Labe, Arctic sea ice annual minimum. So after the second lowest annual minimum, Arctic sea ice extent is now in uncharted territory for the. I guess it is declining. That looks like decline. It looks like a little curve towards downward. The downward area of the graph here. Whoa. And as you can see, like if you notice, especially very noticeable this year, how the line is not dipping, right? It's not going as high up as it should be. Maybe not going as, maybe going further down, but eventually what I'm seeing here is that this line is kind of flattening out, right? It's not doing the wavy, the super wave that the other years were doing, even 2012. So it started kind of low over here, didn't quite get to the lowest extent, but you know, staying low and actually declining in, we'll call this mid-October. Somebody says declining in the freezing season. That's new. So I guess he's gonna show 2016. This did happen in 2016. Well, this has been happening for the last 5 years, you know, for sure. Where we've been getting like melt situations, even in the winter, even in the cold times, the bold times, and you know, we're getting like heating events in the middle of the winter, or you know, periods of time when the temperature will go, the temperature anomaly will be 20 or 30 Celsius above normal in the dead of winter. So obviously that's not helping the ice. You guys already saw that. Oh Jesus. All right. So yeah, sorry, forest dweller. You're on a timeout, buddy. Yeah, I don't, you know, I don't really need to hear your macho shit in the chat, okay, Forrest? I know you're like, oh, like you can take that shit. You know, take a chill, and you will take a chill for a little while. Anyways, let's move on, guys. Let's move on. Going back to Go Green's timeline. Go Green. This is pretty much the article I wanted to get into today. Pesticide industry mass killing of bees. This is from 2 days ago. Grocery retailers at risk of running short of foods, including nuts, beans, juices, fruit, and vegetables, and dairy. Globally, between $235 billion and $577 billion worth of annual food production relies on bees. And we are going to look at this article that he posted. This is from Green Biz. October 15th, 2020, grocery retailers will feel the sting of pollinator declines. Bees and other pollinators are essential to the production of 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat, but they are in great peril. Their populations are declining around the world due in large part to pesticide use, growing toxicity of agricultural lands. From honeybees to bumblebees, research shows that bee populations are declining, and this loss is already causing shortages in key food crops in the United States. Already causing shortages in key food crops in the United States. So I'm just going to go to this real quick. Is this, did we cover this? It's from The Guardian. Loss of bees causes shortage of key food crops, study finds. Apple and cherry production hampered by lack of wild bees. Did I miss this article altogether? A lack of bees in agricultural areas is limiting the supply of some food crops. Maybe not. Maybe I did read it. A new U.S.-based study has found suggesting that declines in the pollinators may have serious ramifications for global food security. Species of wild bees, such as bumblebees, are suffering from a loss of flowering habitat, the use of toxic pesticides, and increasingly the climate crisis. Managed honeybees, meanwhile, are tended by beekeepers, but have still been assailed by disease, leading to concerns that the 3/4 of the world's food crops dependent upon pollinators could falter due to lack of bees. This article is from July 29, 2020. I mean, this is fairly large news, don't you think, guys? This is pretty important, wouldn't you say? Of 7 studied crops grown in 13 states across America, 5 showed evidence that lack of bees is hampering the amount of food that can be grown, including apples, blueberries, and cherries. A total of 131 crop fields were surveyed for bee activity and crop abundance by a coalition of scientists from the U.S., Canada, and Sweden. The crops that got more bees got significantly more crop production, as you would, more bees, more crops, said Rachel Winfrey, an ecologist and pollination expert at Rutgers University who was a senior author of the paper published by the Royal Society. I was surprised. I didn't expect they would be limited to this extent. The researchers found that wild native bees contributed a surprisingly large portion of the pollination despite operating in intensively farmed areas largely denuded of the vegetation that supports them. Did you guys know this? Did you know? I didn't. And, I was under the impression that we had all these beekeepers running around the United States with trucks full of bees, and they were out there just pollinating up a storm. And whoa, as it turns out, crops really actually rely on the wild bees and not the domesticated bees to pollinate their crops. Wild bees are often more effective pollinators than honeybees, but research has shown several species are in sharp decline. The rusty-patched bumblebee, for example, was the first bee to be placed on the U.S. endangered species list in 2017 after suffering an 87%, god dang it, guys, 87%, that's, we'll call that 90. We'll just go ahead and call that 90%. So we're saying 12% of the bees are left. That's not a lot of bees. Swaths of the American agriculture is propped up by honeybees, frantically replicated and shifted around the country in hives in order to meet a growing need for crop pollination. So you see even that is monetized, right? So crop pollination, there's no more wild bees left. We just have these guys that have these, boxes full of bees, and they're driving around in trucks trying to, madly driving around trying to pollinate all the crops. And what happens when those bees fail? Then what happens? Almonds, one of the 2 crops not shown to be suffering from a lack of bees in the study, are mostly grown in California, where most of the beehives in the U.S. are trucked to each year for a massive almond pollination event. The U.S. is at the forefront of divergent trends that are being replicated elsewhere in the world. As farming becomes more intensive to churn out greater volumes to feed a growing global population, tactics such as flattening wildflower meadows, spraying large amounts of insecticide, and planting monocultural fields of single crops are damaging the bee populations crucial for crop pollination. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, the amount of crop production dependent upon insect and other pollinators has increased 300% over the past 50 years. 300% is a lot of percent. Pollination shortfalls could cause certain fruits and vegetables to become rarer and more expensive, triggering nutritional deficits in diets. Staples such as rice, wheat, corn won't be affected, however, as they are pollinated via the wind. Except for if you have too much wind or too much water or too much something else, right, then they run into trouble in other ways. Honeybee colonies are weaker than they used to be, and wild bees are declining, probably a lot. Said Winfrey, the agriculture is getting more intensive and there are fewer bees, so at some point the pollination would become limited, even if honeybees were healthy. It's risky to rely so much on a single bee species. that, where are we? Parasites will target the one species we have in these monocultural cultural crop fields. There you go. Going back to the other article I was reading. Without pollinators to help support the production of leading global food crops, grocery retailers are at risk of running short of some of our most important and nutritious foods, including nuts, beans, juices, fruit and vegetables, and meat and dairy. This, in turn, will destabilize and disrupt major supply chains that grocery stores and their customers rely on. In response to findings from authoritative scientific studies, major marketplaces such as the European Union have banned the use of pollinator toxic pesticides, including neonicotinoids and chloropyrifos. Unfortunately, U.S. regulatory agencies lag behind other countries. So other countries are already kind of on top of this or trying to get on top of this. U.S. not so much. I blame fascism. Grocery retailers can use their enormous market power to reduce the use of toxic pesticides on farms in the U.S. and around the world, as well as build financial value into their supply chains. But what about the bees? What about the wild bees? What are we going to do about them? How are we going to get them back? The pollinator crisis needs rapid response from food retailers. So, okay. Somehow, so these businesses that sell us food are supposed to place pressure on the people that grow food to make them do it better. But maybe there's a disconnect about how much food we can produce without all the chemicals and how many people we have to feed, right? Maybe somebody's not understanding the equation. Anyways, they're talking about solutions, which, may or may not. Might be helpful, but who knows? Lower chemical footprint through pesticide use reduction program. So they're trying to set up some kind of framework for reducing the amount of pesticides and thus limiting harm to bees. And there are other pollinators beside bees, right? So there's bees, birds, butterflies, hummingbirds. Are bats pollinators? I think they are. $989 Big Boss says you can't get them back. It's over. Yeah, I mean, I think they might have slight regional successes here and there. Oh, is it crackling? Sound is good here? Okay. Especially when we've seen studies and reports coming out of, places as different as Germany and Costa Rica, saying that they're seeing something like 80% insect decline, right? 75%, 80% insect decline. So it's, this is a global, worldwide phenomenon. The insect decline is going to continue. Russ Taylor says Biden better for bees. We're going to build back better bees. That's right. That's right. Ross Coben, fruit bats, yeah. Build back Biden's bees better. Okay. Anyway, so that was a real struggle to get through that article, but we made it, or we'll get through that topic. I'm going to show you guys something. I hope maybe you find this inspirational. I know that some of our viewers are already living somewhat close to this manner, or are, you've got your own farms, you're off grid, or you're growing most of your food. So a lot of y'all are already, way far down the road in doing stuff like this. So this is a guy, Rob Greenfield, who just eats things that he grows or forages. And anyways, just good ideas in here. I'm going to play this for you. I hope you guys like this. And maybe I can get sound.
Restaurants, nothing packaged or processed, nothing shipped long distance. One year, I only ate foods that I grew and foraged. 1 year without grocery stores or restaurants, nothing packaged or processed, nothing shipped long distances. Literally everything that I ate for the entire year came from my garden or that I harvested from nature. When I started, I didn't know how much sun does a carrot need, how much water do you put on your collards or your Swiss chard. I was just literally on the internet researching every plant and how to do it. Food didn't get bland because I ate over 300 species of food. I grew over 100 different foods and I foraged over 200 different foods. My name is Rob Greenfield. I'm an environmental activist who embarks on extreme adventures to bring attention to important environmental and social issues. I chose Florida because as someone who had minimal experience, I did want to be somewhere where I could grow food year-round. It can be done in colder climates, but I wanted to choose an easier place since I was just a beginner. And what I chose to do was not live on a farm, not live out in the countryside, because I wanted to impact people. I wanted people to see me growing my food. Could I exist without grocery stores and restaurants and actually grow all my own food? I started from scratch. I had to get seeds and soil and figure out the absolute basic. One of the first things that I did is I connected with the local food growing movement. I went to the community.
Hold on one second. Okay, good.
Community garden. So I just really immersed in the community and got to know people. And so I ended up having 6 front yard gardens, and they were available for anyone to eat from. Quickly, it went from grass to having really enough food for dozens or even hundreds of people to eat from, and they were basically community gardens. Anybody could walk in and eat the food. My goal wasn't just to grow and forage all of my own food. My goal was to help other people do so as well. So during the year I started Gardens for Single Moms, and we built gardens for 5 single-parent families in the neighborhoods and helped them grow their own food. And we planted over 200 fruit trees that were publicly accessible for everyone to eat from. And then Free Seed Project, and we sent out 5,000 garden starter kits to people to grow their own healthy food across the country. I made my own flour by dehydrating cassava and yam. Then I could make my own tortillas and bread. I fermented a lot of foods and made things like sauerkraut and honey wine and ginger beer. I ate dozens and dozens of different meals throughout the year that were really varied. For the year, I lived in a tiny house that I built out of 99% secondhand materials. It's 10 feet by 10 feet, so very small. My arm span is 6 feet, so I span across most of it. Basically, it was a bed, a desk with a chair, a freezer to store food, a couple of shelves to store a lot of food, and then under the bed, there was storage as well. Being in Florida, I was able to utilize outside as well. So my kitchen was an outdoor kitchen, and that was powered by rainwater, so my sink was just rainwater for washing dishes and hands. And I also had an outdoor compost toilet, turn that into fertile soil rather than wasting water and shipping it off to be someone else's problem. That fertilizer is used on fruit trees. So not on your kale and stuff on the ground, but on fruit trees where the fruit is high above. And then lastly, I had an outdoor shower as well, and the water from that was harvested from rain, and then the water would be used to water banana plants to grow bananas. Through the year, I had my ups and downs. At times felt my absolute best, and then there was times that I was worried about my health. The middle of the year, I found that I had a deficiency, I thought, in fat and protein. Permaculture, there's a saying, and that's turn your problem into your solution. The squirrels were my problem. They were eating my plant-based form of protein, so I ate the squirrels. You are getting food from a farm, even if it's vegan food, there's a good chance they're killing squirrels or rats or or mice that are eating the food. So for me, I'm in the direct fire. You see these things that I'm doing, but the reality is that we're all doing this, we just don't see it. At the end of the year, I felt honestly better than I had recalled in my adult life. I was healthier and I was happier, and I didn't get sick once throughout the entire year. Most of the food that we buy at the grocery store today is shipped long distances, often from halfway around the world, if not halfway across the country. It's packaged in plastic that will be around for hundreds of years, either in the landfill or in our oceans and our lakes and our forests. It's processed and filled with ingredients that aren't really good for us, and it uses a ton of pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers that run off and pollute our water. So this food, although it appears harmless on our plates, has so many repercussions to people, to other species, and to the world that we depend on for our existence. And that's why I think it's important to know that, to find food that doesn't cause that destruction to the world that we live on.
All right. Oops, sorry. That's loud. All right, guys. Yeah, there's some good comments in there. Russ, yeah, I wondered that too. He's like, did this dude have a full-time job? Used to be a futures trader, but left to work on his conscience. Yeah, I was like, does this guy have a job? What does he do for a living? Yeah, maybe he's in cryptocurrency or something. I don't know who it is. Robert Arajo says, great, but too late. Sad. But I mean, hey, it's a, look, it's a way to live, right? So if you want to live more in harmony with the planet, with a lighter footprint on the planet, that's the way to live, right? If you can reduce your reliance on on the truckers and the shipping and the, and the air shipping and the air freight, right? Like if you can live without all that stuff in your life, like you're free in a sense, right? And that is what he's doing. So I'm into it. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.